the Workforce Connections podcast, where we discuss workforce development in Southern Nevada. Here's your host.
Hi, and welcome to another episode of the WC podcast. Today, we have a very special guest, somebody I've known for a very, very long time. Help me welcome Anisa Stechert, licensed master social worker at psychedelic integration therapist at Nushama. We're honored to have you here today.
I am so excited to be here. This really is such a funny, sweet, full circle moment. Having been born here and coming back, it's being with you again after decades.
I know. It's exciting, right? Like I've seen you before now, which we and your family, we saw each other in North Carolina and Charlotte a while back. But this is how I remember you.
And she is still here.
Yeah,
That's also how I remember me.
Yeah. Now, your dad has changed a lot.
Some would say.
But yeah, your dad and I, good friends. And again, when I used to go pick up my children at the nursery at church, your dad and I, that's how we became friends. We would see each other at the nursery. And that's a story for another time, right? You and I are going to talk about that at dinner with the kids. Your dad always tries to, embellish that story, but we'll get to him. But today we're here to talk about you. And you're right. You are now a young adult with an exciting career. You're making some career moves, which we'll talk about today. But yesterday we got to spend some time with some prominent leaders of our state. You were right next to the governor's office with his director of economic development. You got to meet the president and CEO of the Vegas Chamber, the state's largest chamber of commerce, leaders from the Las Vegas Global Economic Alliance, UNLV Economic Development, and on and on. So how was yesterday for you?
Quite the whirlwind, and also just so exciting being able to talk about what I have been working on, what I am launching here in Nevada, and really learning. There's so much I obviously don't know about Nevada's economy, what's available opportunity-wise. So being able to be with these really prominent leaders and innovationists, which I consider myself to be. So being in those arenas with those people was really life-giving and so exciting.
Well, good. I'm glad you had a good day. I enjoyed the time together. To get us started, what we do here in the podcast is let our listeners, our viewers, learn a little bit about you. I know all this stuff, but because I happen to be a family friend, but tell our audience where you were born, where you grew up, went to elementary, middle, high school, college. Take us all the way to your first job out of college.
So I was born, and I always say born and raised in Las Vegas, even though I did move away to Florida with my family when I was 11. But this place has always been a touchstone for me. When I think back, especially even just us driving around yesterday and thinking about, man, my childhood was Mount Charleston, Red Rock, going horseback riding with my dad, the Desert Breeze YMCA swim team. I loved growing up here.
The Joe Crabshock playground.
Yes, actually, yeah. And so being back here is so sweet. And I do consider this home. I still have so much family here and roots. And it is funny because in my reflecting on being from Vegas, I feel like so much of me is similar to the city of second chances, transformation, reinvention. And that is so much of the basis of what I believe in for myself and for people. And so it's funny to think about almost this symbolic connection with me in this city, even from a really young age. And then moving away to Florida, I went to a small private Christian school from 6th till 12th grade, which was really founded, my faith, which has taken many different shapes throughout the years, as it should, growing with me. And then being able to go to a small private university in West Palm Beach, Florida, where I got my degree in English, my Bachelor of Arts in English. And it was so funny because everyone always told me, well, all you can do is teach. That's all you're going to be able to do with an English degree, which, to be fair, incredibly important, which did lead to my very first job as a Title I secondary English teacher.
Wow.
So for those who don't know, a Title I school has it's predominantly low-income students who are living below the poverty line. And so those schools receive government funding to essentially try to level the playing field. And that experience was so critical. Talk about milestone moment in shaping how I view people in relation to their story And being an English teacher, it was so critical in my being able to distill down complex ideas, hold space for my students who are quite literally living in the trenches of trauma in a lot of ways, systemic violence. And so one of those things, like hindsight's 2020, but how that really set me off on this trajectory, being a teacher in that school and grinding it out. And so I was a teacher for 3 years. I worked at 2 schools throughout that time. And it was so important for me, this narrative thread that begun where it's like story, people and their stories, holding space, relationship. And then after I was a teacher, I left and became the program director for a small South Florida nonprofit that worked with adult survivors of childhood sexual abuse. So again, being able to hold people's trauma well, honoring the story. And, you know, people don't need solutions. Sometimes they just need you to sit with them in the sad, in the collapse, in the destruction. So I had that opportunity that was also incredibly influential in shaping how I work with people even now as a psychedelic therapist. Yeah. And so after that job, I had 2 different research positions, also at nonprofits. In between when I had left being the program director at that nonprofit that worked with adult survivors of childhood sexual abuse, I ended up moving to New York to pursue my MSW. I started, funny enough, at NYU, because that focus was direct practice, like one-on-one therapy. And that's what I really thought I wanted to do. And it was important. At the time, I was halfway through my MSW and I was like, I made a mistake. I don't want to work one-on-one with people. It's like too in the weeds. That's not how my brain works. And so nothing's ever a waste. It was so good that I had that experience. Also was critical in my understanding of therapeutic techniques, approaches. And then I transferred to Columbia University in New York City because there was an opportunity there for me to have a focus on program development. Advanced generalist practice and programming is like what I got my degree in at Columbia as a social worker, because I'm obsessed with systems. How do things like work together? How are we ensuring that the services we're providing are actually being done well? And so while I was at Columbia, I ended up working for the Mayor's Office of Criminal Justice, the Criminal Justice Agency, as a researcher, where I was assisting in pretrial reform, bail reform, making sure people weren't remanded or sent to stay behind bars while they were awaiting sentencing, and being able to work with those who had faced incarceration, looking at how do we legitimately reduce recidivism rates. So, you know, all these things, of course, were so pivotal in shaping how I work with people. Everyone wants their story to be heard. That is what it always comes down to. Yeah. And so, you know, at the time when I was working for the mayor's office, I thought that that's where I was probably going to end up long term. And all these jobs, important. But really, when I think about what led me to be a psychedelic integrationist, it was my own collapsing over and over and over again, death and rebirth, like true, like Phoenix rising from the ashes. My story is one of having received several diagnoses throughout different times in my life. I was 17 years old the first time that I feel like I had the DSM-5 chucked at my head by the therapist, where I was like, are you good? Am I good? Anxiety, depression, anorexia. Other diagnoses floated throughout the years in between, you know, now and then, OCD, ADHD. And I know that those experiences, I get to tell patients, I really have been in your chair. Yeah. Just because I'm sitting in the therapist chair doesn't mean I've arrived. I haven't transcended, and I know what I'm talking about. And if I can get to a place of wholeness and healing, you absolutely can too, because I was diagnosed with all of it. And also, which we're going to get into this more, it is like your diagnosis isn't a disorder. It's an invitation to healing in very specific ways and coming back to yourself. And so when I think about my journey, yes, the training mattered as a social worker. First direct practice, then macro social work. That mattered. The jobs, they all mattered. Being able to synthesize, distill down information for my students, and then also data analysis, program development, tracking outcomes. So it's like, I lived it, I researched it, I systemized it. Like I know what I'm talking about.
And now you're using all of it to help patients. So that brings us to Nushama, right? Because that's where you are now, and that's what the next step involves. So we're going to dive into that. I think, again, and I was fascinated by the couple of videos that I saw of you. One was a podcast, which we'll make a link here on this one so that people can go watch it.
Thank you.
But then also that other video that your dad first forwarded to me where I got to learn about what you were doing. So tell us about Nushama, though. Tell us about what psychedelic integration therapy is right there in New York City in Madison Avenue, right?
Genuinely so hilarious. I laugh thinking about how patients have these profound God-centering, like I was out in the ether moments, and then they walk out and it's like Cartier, Givenchy, like you're on Madison Avenue. So Nushama is a psychedelic wellness center. It administers ketamine. That is the only legal psychedelic available. And my job as a psychedelic integrationist is to be able to sit with people right before they go in, setting intentions, and then I'm not there while they're undergoing their own process. I get to be there right afterwards to talk about what came up. But Nushama is the only, I think there's actually one other ketamine clinic now that offers what I do, which is the most pivotal part of psychedelic therapy. A lot of people think it is just the molecule. And I'm like, yeah, that's 10%. But the meaning making, integration, that's 90% of what is so transformative about this work.
So dealing with the emotions and feelings and information that comes out after you go into the drug, right?
Oh, yeah. So, I get to tell people, I have their intake, which includes all past diagnoses, all the other things that they tried. Ketamine therapy usually isn't people's first line of defense. They've pretty much run the gamut. And so I work with people who are in really tender places at the end of their rope, who only know themselves by their diagnoses. And so being able to say, well, that's not you. It's not you. Your diagnoses, you are not depressed. Like there's a core wound. You're struggling with depression, these symptoms that are coming up, but it's not you. And so that's always really sweet too, being able to reframe for patients who are in those tender, fragile places. There is so much hope.
Yeah, and you've seen real results in, first responders, law enforcement, PTSD from, service men and women, victims of sexual abuse. So you've seen a lot of that. And I've, again, heard these stories. I'd like you to kind of explain how the drug works, because that's an interesting piece.
So what is so special, cool about ketamine is it is a dissociative anesthetic. And so when you have this drug hit you, what it actually anesthetizes is what's called your default mode network. It is the part of your brain that is responsible for the way you perceive yourself and the world. So when we have certain diagnoses, we have a certain way of perceiving the world and ourselves. I'm disconnected, I'm unsafe, I'm not good enough. That's what we're constantly looping through. And it colors everything. It's your perspective. So when we take that offline, the way that you see yourself in the world for even just an hour, and you're able to go in and be like, oh yeah, I hear from patients all the time. I have this totally different objective, zoomed out perspective. I'm not stuck. It's like we took that part of the brain that's like your ego gets a bad rap. It's just trying to keep you safe. And so when we feel like we can predict what's coming, who we are, we can label, we can categorize, the devil is better than the one that you don't. And so a lot of patients, it's like, well, there's safety in me continuing to perceive myself this way, the world this way, it's what I know. And it's like, well, but it's not you. And when they have that, there's respite, a break from the looping, the scripts.
I've heard you call it a reset moment, right?
It really is. And what's so cool is, so the way I like to explain it to patients is it's like, you know, when your phone's being wonky technology and it's like, yeah, you turn it off, turn it on. When you do the protocol, which is 6 sessions in closer succession to one another. So we do 2 a week for 3 weeks. That's the protocol. It's like unplugging everything, waiting 10 seconds, plugging it all back in. It is a hard reset when you do the protocol, where it's like, oh, I'm like totally perceiving myself like in the world in a completely different way. I feel agency in taking ownership of my story and reauthoring it.
One of the things that also has hung with me since I've been learning about all this stuff is that, I didn't know what the drug was, but you educated me that it's a drug that babies receive in higher dosages than your patients.
So it is so important to know that ketamine, in addition to being incredibly efficacious for treating treatment-resistant depression, all these different diagnoses, disorders, it's so safe. Very few contraindications. Contraindications are things that could adversely conflict with ketamine. So patients can be taking their antidepressants, anti-anxieties, mood stabilizers, and it's not going to negatively interact with the ketamine. When you do go for a procedure at the hospital and they use ketamine as the anesthetic to put you under, they mix that with a bunch of benzodiazepines, which counteract the hallucinogenic effects. And so a lot of people have probably done ketamine unbeknownst to them. Babies do receive more than what we give dosing wise. So it's so safe, which is one of the best perks to this.
Which is probably one of the reasons why it's legal.
Correct, yes.
And then another thing that was fascinating to me when you've been educating me on this subject was, it's wonderful to have it, to have that opportunity for the reset, but it means less if there's not the actual therapy with it. And there's places where that's missing.
Yes, which it is so wild to me because I'm all about this being administered ethically. And that's a huge concern, is it's like, we're going to give a drug, a Schedule III controlled substance. Having a psychedelic therapist present assists in weeding out any potential drug-seeking behaviors. And when I get to sit with patients and talk about what came up, it's like inputs and outputs. You just had a really profound, beautiful experience. The reality is you could get back out on Madison Avenue and keep choosing the exact same things, which is insanity.
Yeah.
So how are we going to start to move the needle, even just 1%, to where your life is more authentically aligned with who you really are?
And I know that you're very satisfied and enjoy the work you do because you see that every day. You see lives, patients being changed after failing at other attempts.
Yes. And it is always so sweet. And I feel like God Almighty, the universe, source, whatever you want to call it, whatever higher powers that be, I feel like it'll always be after just like a really tough day. My last patient, it'll be like, my life is really different. Like, I didn't know I could feel this way. Wow. I feel unobscured by these things that I thought were just my lot in life. I had to resign myself to. And so it is so, especially again, when you have patients who are like, I've been in psychotherapy for 20 years. And I'm like, yeah, I don't want to see you a lot. No offense. Mm-hmm. I want for you to become so trained in meeting your needs, addressing core wounds, working through releasing these old scripts, these beliefs that don't suit you. I don't want to meet with you once a week for 20 years. I want you to become your own trained inner healer. I shouldn't see you again very much after the protocol.
That's awesome. So tell me then, if I went to New York, if anybody went to New York, to Nushama to see you, or as we're going to talk about later, maybe the new locations, what does a typical session look like with psychedelic therapy? Walk me through, I'm coming into the building, what happens until I leave?
So it is, I always tell patients, there's a method to our madness, trust the process. This is a part of what also makes Nushama so special and different, is the medical oversight and the safety container. So when you come in, you will have already met with our chief medical officer, who ensures, do you have any family history of certain personality disorders, things that could make your treatment go wonky. If you do have a past of schizophrenia or, different diagnoses that would not allow you to participate in the protocol, going over your medications, dosing already just in the intake. So there's so many touch points prior to somebody getting to me. When you get in the chair for your appointment, you'll first be met with an MA, a medical assistant, who will check your vitals, put your IV in. So what Nushama, the ways that we administer ketamine are intravenously, which is the IV, intramuscularly, straight into the muscle. And then we do also offer intranasal. And so most of the patients, all the patients I work with are IV or IM. I don't necessarily work with, that's a whole other thing we don't have to get into. But you have the MA put the IV in, a registered nurse will come in, talk to you like, did you take these medications? Since we do treat a lot of people who have alcohol use disorder or are struggling through addiction, a breathalyzer, perhaps, urine toxology, like to ensure we're all on the same page. I always tell patients, we're not trying to rain on your parade or keep you from having a good time. Ketamine by itself is so safe. If you're coming in and you have alcohol use disorder and you drank right before your appointment, ketamine can then suppress your respiratory rate. So being honest with the medical team and then also us doing our due diligence and ensuring that you are in a place biologically to receive this dissociative anesthetic. So then usually, especially when it's patient's first time and I come in, I'm like, I promise I'm the last person you're going to have to talk to before you get in, because they'll have met with the MA, the RN, the chief medical director, who will speak about, do we want to go up in dosing? How are you feeling? Everything is up to the patient. I always tell patients this, you have so much agency autonomy. You're empowered. Like if you don't want to go up in dosing or you want to go down, good. It is up to you. So much so. So then they'll have met with 3 people prior to me getting in there. And that's where it's like, okay, our job together, pre-conversation, how do we get you to a place where you feel most enabled to just let go, surrender to the experience? This dissociative anesthetic, it cannot be controlled. So you have 2 options. You can resist. I don't want to see that. I don't want to go there. I want to conjure up this image, and it's going to be a hell of a time for no reason. Or you let go, you surrender, you practice presence, which is so much of the medicine. You just have to be in it. You just have to be in it. You don't have to figure out what's going on, where you are. You're probably not going to be able to do so. You don't even have to try and remember. You just have to be in it. Patients will have intentions, which I like to think of as maybe an orienter or a compass, where it's like, I really want to let go of this anger towards my mom, whatever. I want to release this past relationship. I want whatever it is. And it's like, okay, hold it loosely, because you're going to get the journey that you need. And then I like to remind patients, this experience is no different than out in the real world. The real world out here is a dissociative anesthetic. What can you control? Your choices. You can't control anything else. People, outcomes, it's just what you're choosing. When we try to allocate effort toward controlling the uncontrollable, like in a ketamine journey, you're going to have a hell of a time for no reason. So it's like, all right, how do I release attempts at my illusions of being in control and just trust? I'm choosing what's best for me. Perspectives, grounding practices, whatever. And also things are going to shake out how they're going to shake out. I'm not going to dig my heels in. And so our pre-conversation is, let's just go in, open, receptive. Then the journey itself, the MAs or RNs will come and check on patients and just make sure everything is still going okay. Usually it is to make sure that there's not a crink in the arm to slow the IV drip, because it is so safe. Just checking on patients to make sure everything is still running smoothly. They are by themselves. I'm pretty anti-hand-holding, to be honest. I'm one of the only integrators who has that stance at Nushama, because it's you with you all the time. And yes, community, friends, loving support system, it's important. And no one can ever pull you out of anything. You pull you out. So people have to figure out, wrestle it out. You got to dig in. I'm not going to hold your hand.
Wow.
And I say that with all the love in the world.
Yeah.
And then post. Yes. No, ask.
No, when they come back from the journey as post?
So then, they'll get some snacks at Nushama, some fruit, some water. It is a really beautiful, beautiful center that we have. We don't want it to feel like a doctor's office. And so we try to make the experience, yes, as medically safe, where patients know, like, this is the safest place for me to do this. And it's also like a spa. It's really beautiful. So they usually have their little snacks and we'll be eating while they're talking to me about, I was able to meet my great-grandmother, who I've only seen pictures of. And she talked to me about this. I was able to practice. This really dark, scary, ominous cloud came up and I didn't resist. And I was curious. I practiced curiosity and I moved through it and it was actually beautiful. Or I saw lots of greens and blues and it reminded me of whatever. So we get to unpack what I like to call patient symbolic architecture, where it's like, yeah, that's your subconscious. What's it saying to you? It'll speak in seeming absurdity, nonsensical imagery. And then that's where I get to come in and be like, well, what if you saw this time clock spinning around and it's evidence of your PTSD being stuck in the past, where we can like release that and come back into the present? What if we viewed this part of your journey in this way and we're able to then figure out together, because I tell patients, we're co-creating your integration plan with one another. What does it look like in the days between now and when you return to start practicing something new, a perspective, a new habit, whatever?
And that's the lasting healing right there.
Yes, absolutely.
I imagine that in the journey too, there's a possibility that very ugly, very traumatic stuff can come up.
Oh, yeah. And so, even though, because the way that Nushama schedule is, this is wild. I usually only have a max of 15 to 20 minutes with patients because I'll see sometimes 6, 7 patients a day, which is really cool to think about. I have had a different type of clinical immersion given the way Nushama's schedule is. I've met with probably 700 people now. I've run the gamut as far as every type of person from every background. We got to keep the schedule tight because there are a lot of people who receive this treatment. And in instances like that, where I'm like, yeah, I'm going to have to like tell my other patients, other integrators, because we need to sift through this in a more tender, thorough way. And then I do a lot of follow-up with patients who do have, we suppress when it is intense trauma, like sexual abuse. There is like such a process to really unraveling that. It comes with a lot. And so patient follow-up, it's extended integration. I'll do phone calls, Zoom meetings where I get to talk more with patients about how we're stabilizing them.
Wow, that's amazing. So, and then how do you know when it's okay or time for them to get on a ride share or drive their own car on the metro, the bus, the subway?
We do ensure, because we do metabolize ketamine within 7 minutes. And some of the effects can last for, max, it's such a one-off. Even just talking about it yesterday, where I'm like, in the 2 years that I've been there, I think it really only has been maybe 5 patients who we give you, in addition to the ketamine, we'll put Zofran, which is an anti-nausea, in your bag, because you do feel like you're getting flipped all around in these psychedelic experiences. And so if you are prone to motion sickness, we'll give you meclizine. We'll give you things that combat any of that, the motion sickness, the nausea. And then some people, it doesn't matter. Again, maybe 5 people out of the 700 where they're vomiting for 4 hours. And I'm like,
the nausea is that extreme. Wow.
And I'll say, I'm like, this might not be your tool. And that's okay. There's a million other ones. Ketamine just might not be it for you.
Okay.
And so, but usually the dizziness, if there is nausea, we'll give you more Zofran and it'll subside within, I like to call it like the ketamine shuffle, lasts for maybe 15 minutes after you're coming out.
That's just wobbly legs?
Oh yeah. Where people are holding onto the wall on their way to the bathroom, but it passes pretty quickly.
So again, I've been hearing about it from you now, but I think it's really important for those who don't know to talk about these things, right? Like when you told me, the body metabolizes it in 7 minutes, wow, that's not very lasting. When I heard you say babies get more when they get procedures, so that sounds pretty safe. All these things I think is really, reasons probably why it's legal, reasons why it's so effective as you talked about. But I've also, is there any other misconceptions, if you will, that you encounter that we haven't talked about? Because as you know, I was born and raised in Peru. So ayahuasca is something I've, known about and been exposed to. And I know there's ancient cultures and shamans forever that have been using things to tap into this thing, right? It's just that now it's clinical, very legal. So what other misconceptions, are there about this stuff?
You are speaking my language. So, misconceptions, I feel like the main ones really are, this is a silver bullet. This is the cure-all. And I tell patients, this is a tool. Whenever I hear them say, I really need this to work, and they're pointing at the IV bag that's just been spiked with ketamine, I need this to work. And it's like, okay, this is a tool. It's the equivalent of me putting a hammer in your hand and you being like, I really hope this builds this birdhouse. And it's like, well, you got to wield it. What does it look like for you to really commit to changes and work at this? This is therapy. This is not, the drug doesn't do the work for you. Right. It opens the door. Integration allows you to walk through it. This doesn't solve your problems. It does immensely alleviate acute suicidality, again, treatment-resistant depression. It does do a lot neurologically and biologically, and sustained long-term change is going to come from your choices, your work. This doesn't do that for you. Another one is that ketamine's only for extreme cases. Ketamine, psychedelic therapy can be for those who, want to explore themselves further. Like, yes, healing, but also it's not just for people who have run the gamut. It's like, this doesn't have to be, last line of defense. This really can be for those who have lower moods or are struggling with I feel like I'm kind of stuck in this area or in this regard, that this is too woo-woo. That's another big misconception. It's well, this is really science-backed. This is data-backed. This is not woo-woo. This is science.
And I've heard you talk about in the last, few conversations we've had about this, about being in the fringes, looking at it as being alternative. But the next question is about the future, and I've heard you talking about it, you see a different future for psychedelic integration. Explain that to our listeners. What do you see the evolution of this, in the next few years? Does it include only ketamine? Is it things like mushrooms and ayahuasca and other things? How do you see the future for this technique, this tool?
So I do fully believe, given how efficacious and safe ketamine is, it is tougher with these other psychedelics. MDMA got shot down, I think it was earlier this year, because high likelihood for contraindications. Also, what is wild is with ketamine, it's really 45 minutes that patients, it's 5 minutes going in, 45 minutes where you are actively journeying, 5 minutes coming out. With things like MDMA, 6 hours, 4 to 6 hours, psilocybin, 8.
Ayahuasca?
7 was for my, I'm that's where you buckle up and you're in it for several hours, and we have taken these really beautiful ancient shamanic practices, and I laugh because we New Yorkified it, but that's what's accessible. People take the day off work and they come in and they meet God, they meet themselves. And so you don't have to go upstate. You don't have to go on an 8-hour trip journey with other psychedelics. You can come in on Madison Avenue and experience all the benefit that comes with psychedelic medicine in a New Yorkified way.
And in the future, will it be more accessible? Because being there where you talk about the rent's got to be high.
Yeah.
And so the cost got to be high. What do you see that? Do you see that curve leveling where it's more accessible to more people, more affordable?
I really hope so. I think, Nushama, we do, the way that we provide and offer things is very much so premier, luxe, best of the best. I love that. And I do believe that ketamine clinics will become more prevalent. And with that, my hope is that integration, which is my passion and what I have dedicated my life's work to, is how do we ensure that as this continues to expand, it's being done ethically. I don't anticipate other psychedelics being able to take the stage in the same way that ketamine has. And, the way in which I provide integration, it's not cookie cutter. It would still be able to be applicable to these other psychedelics should they become legal.
That's very cool. And I know you have developed unique protocols, which you are protecting through either trademark or copyright and whatnot. Before we talk about what's happening, because you touched on it, you want to scale. We're going to talk about Miami, maybe Las Vegas, right after your chapter in New York as future chapters. But one thing that's still floating in my mind for somebody that hasn't heard it, you cleared it up for me, but how do you screen out the person who's just trying to go seek the drug, It's actually really obvious. And maybe it is because now I've been steeping in this for 2 years, but you can tell when people are, because anything can be a means of escape. So when I see, there's just certain telltale signs of someone being like, I need to come back for another booster next week. And it's like, no, you don't. Mm-hmm. So there's certain, obviously the frequency in which someone comes can be a telltale sign that this is probably drug seeking. Sometimes patients, it'll be really funny. There is this understanding in our office that, everyone lies to their doctor. It's not really much different at Nushama, where patients will tell Dr. Radowitz, who is so blessed to be able to work under him. He is literally the #1 dosist in all of America, and he's been like a mentor to me. He picks up on things, and also he gets lied to. And patients will then tell me, the therapist, the truth, where they're like, well, I did shrooms last weekend, or when I have done snorted ketamine myself, and I'm like, okay, I'm taking mental note of these things that have not been said to the chief medical director, to be able to have conversations with him about what do we think treatment wise moving forward? How do we put up certain guardrails or parameters to ensure that this remains therapeutic and not a means of escape or abused? Very good. The other thing, and we're going to move now to, of course, Miami, because I want those listening to hear what's next for you. You formed a company, and it's based here in Nevada. So tell us about that and why you formed the company, because they're sending you to help open a new clinic in Miami. So let's start with that.
So it is funny how it all happened, my conceptualizing, and it was through my 2 years of full-time sitting with people in their stories, where I started to pick up on, okay, even my training pathologizes the diagnoses, where it's you have this symptom cluster that is, can be treated through medication or this, and starting to realize, okay, each diagnosis, depression, anxiety, PTSD, there's a corresponding archetype that I have discovered, where it's depression is the numbed one. Each archetype has a core wound. Usually with depression, it's I'm disconnected. Anxiety, the unknown will destroy me. PTSD, the time traveler, where I'm not present. I'm stuck in the past. I'm unsafe. And so being able to conceptualize this framework that maps modern psychiatric diagnoses onto ancient shamanic journey types, where it's okay, the diagnosis isn't a disorder. It's an invitation. It is. There is, when you have a certain diagnosis, it's pointing towards a core wound. And it's a soul wound that can be addressed through, with depression being numbed out, there's soul retrieval that needs to happen. With anxiety, the forecast keeper, future scanning, desperate to feel safe through certainty. It's okay, you are safe. The practice that we want to employ is divination, not in the woo-woo fortune teller sense, but divination as in embracing and accepting mystery and feeling safe in it. Answers aren't often what makes us feel safe. It's presence. So let's ritualize it. So I was able to conceptualize this framework that takes diagnoses and removes the pathologizing. And it's what's your soul asking for? It's very specific things: soul retrieval, divination, death, rebirth. It's all there in the journeys too. The way that it emerges very organically is wild to me. And so tracking all of these symbols and what the soul is asking for, what the journey is, where it's like, oh, your OCD, the loop maker, you had this journey that encompassed death and rebirth. So the collapse of your compulsive patterning happened. What's being reborn? You, not the compulsions. And so in conceptualizing this framework, I was hired. Now I'm changing my role. They're hiring my company. Nushama is hiring Mythnetics. The name Mythnetics is this fusion of myth, patterns, archetypes, symbols, soul narratives with kinetics, the science of movement, change, and transformation. I want to get your story in motion. Let's rewrite it.
I love it.
And so they're hiring Mythnetics as I am now my business, which is here in Nevada. And that feels so special and apt as well. Talking about like the city of second chances and reinvention. And I know how to work in the desert. You know, it's like, that's my forte. And being able to take everything that I've learned in Manhattan to Miami for some unknown amount of time that season, because I do know I'm coming back here at some point. I'm going to worm my way into all these ketamine clinics. They're going to hire me as a consultant. I provide consulting for clinics, for individuals, workshops, and also starting to even our conversation last night with Mary Beth Sewald, where it's like, my framework is molecule agnostic. Ketamine really helps with how it disrupts your default mode network, the neuroplasticity. Also, we don't need ketamine to reauthor your story. And so thinking about how can we integrate this into policies or classrooms, HR managers, leaders like in certain workplaces where it's like, okay, how do we like really help people know that they can rewrite their story? Like I'm really excited about what I get to practice in Miami. Mythnetics is very new. I did just launch it here. And so being able to kind of work out the kinks, trial and error, figure out what works before I do come over here to Nevada and start to integrate myself back into my home state.
It was exciting for me to see these leaders, colleagues, friends of mine interact with you and give you feedback on that idea, right? On how everybody knows people in their life that could benefit from this. Some of them even themselves. We got in some deep conversations at lunch that stuff came out and I was like, wow, this is all happening organically. But I think hopefully that fed you about, you know, how important this work is and how your home state could benefit from all the stuff you're learning in Manhattan, Miami. So what would that, number one, does the company have a logo yet? Have you worked that out? Because I see a lot of potential there to telling that story visually.
So kind of, I was laughing and I'm very thankful. I have a very good, close relationship with the executive team at Nushama because I realized my logo right now, I'm like, oh, it kind of looks very similar to Nushama. Also, I think that I'm going to Nushama actually wants to come to Vegas. Wow. There's some aspirations of getting into the Fontainebleau and having a clinic there that I would obviously be spearheading. Wow. And so I'm like, maybe Mythnetics and Nushama will always have this really sweet, cute little partnership. Nushama will always be home to me. I know I'm going to launch. I am already doing my own thing. And also that's my playground. That's my laboratory. You know, that's where I really learned firsthand everything that I know now.
That's really good. What date do you leave Manhattan for Miami?
It's the question of the hour.
Okay.
I think I am now slated to head out September 7th.
Oh, so within a month. I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's exciting.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
New beginnings, unknown, like you said. But the good news is you've also done a lot of work, and you to get ready for that.
Oh, yeah.
The new chapters.
You know, again, I'm so thankful for the experiences I've had. Like, talk about resilience where I'm like, all right, statistically, I could bet on myself. I've overcome 100% of the things that I've experienced in the past. So moving forward undeterred. But I am very thankful that I feel aptly prepared from my personal, professional life for this next season.
And, again, yesterday, I think I also got a taste from your interaction with the folks, how it's very not just feasible, but it would make a lot of sense to have you back home one day soon. I know your family also wants that, Greg, Susie, Bella. And so hopefully that happens. But until then, I believe that every opportunity is about learning. And I see you doing that, maximizing your opportunities in Manhattan, now next Miami, to what could, again, parlay later into coming back home, using your craft and your experience and all the skills you developed here for this community. Let's shift gears for a moment and talk about you personally, because again, I remember you from little, but now you're grown up. And so what are some of the things that help you recharge, if you will? What are the things that you enjoy that are not necessarily work, but the things that really feed you, recharge you when you're not working?
Yoga has been a staple to my mental health for probably the last 8 years. Getting out of my head, getting into my body. It's like so key, that embodiment movement. I've gotten really weirdly into making my own botanical teas, doing research on different herbs. Nice. That's been really nourishing and fun. I feel like that's also a creative outlet. Making essential oil blends, which I'm acutely aware of how this all feels very stereotypical. I'm talking about essential oil blends.
Wow.
And botanical teas, being a psychedelic therapist in New York City. Really getting back into reading. I feel like because when I was in school, there was so much reading. I took a big hiatus from reading for pleasure, and that's been so life-giving. Writing is really, really grounding for me. My dog, Annie Marie, a little golden retriever, not little, she's bigger than me. And getting to just like walk her through Central Park, and now in Miami on the beach.
Nice.
Those things are like so recharging for me.
That's awesome. The other thing that I wanted to ask you was, you're still very, very young, not too far away from 18. I'm really far away from my 18-year-old self, but I always think, if I could give that 18-year-old self advice, he could avoid so much pain in life, because, we gain wisdom as we go, and we make mistakes and we learn from them. But then I always remember that 18-year-old probably wouldn't listen to me anyway.
Correct.
And so what advice would you give an 18-year-old who's listening to the podcast today and says, I can relate to her. I was born and raised in Vegas. I love the idea of helping people. I want to be a therapist, but I didn't know much about psychedelic, or maybe I knew and now I know more. Somebody who's interested in becoming a trusted and respected integrationist like you, what advice would you give them now that they're 18?
I would say, the training is so important. I'm very thankful that I got my Master of Social Work degree, just because that training really does assist in viewing people within their complex ecosystem, their environment, systems work. So I think that training, anything within like the mental health care field, yes, is going to be a benefit. My biggest piece of advice to anyone who wants to get into this sector and do this work is you have to do the work yourself. You got to go in. You have to let yourself walk through the fire. You go through your own descent before you can lead others into theirs. You have to know yourself, your shadows. You have to look in the mirror and figure out what's working for me, what's not. Who am I really? If you cannot engage authentically with people, it does not matter where you went to school, what training you had. You have to do your own work. And you have to come from a place of deep humility and knowing. Like I tell patients, I sat in that chair too. I did the ketamine protocol. I had the DSM-5 thrown at my head. I sit in this chair not from a place of transcendence. I did the work, and I'm always doing the work. We are always doing the work. Everything's a practice. We get derailed. You get back up. It is trial and error, initiation by fire. You have to know yourself. You have to do the work.
You just went really deep on me there, man. But I know that for me, as somebody who, again, my good friend, I know he's proud. I know Susie's proud. I know Bella's proud, but I hope you also are proud of this little girl. That you come such a long way. And I'm grateful that you came to share your story here. And so final words. You just
got deep on me. I'm like, I am proud of her. I am. It is a dream. I think even just hearing you say that, being able to take a beat, I think that so many of us can get so myopically focused on where we're going that we don't take a minute to look at where we've come from and where we are, to appreciate, like, man, there's been a lot of twists and turns, and there's been a lot of chapters that I wouldn't have chosen, and it all worked out because I'm here.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you're here. I know me and your family hope that this visit will one day turn to a more permanent coming home. I know that's what you want as well. So thank you for making the time to be here today. Thank you for still keeping that little girl alive inside, as you said. And thank you for making me look good yesterday. When I was exposing you to my network, everybody was like, who is this girl? We need to bring her back to Nevada. So you validated, those intentions.
You are the best. My entire family is always like, hi, May. Hi, May. We're always singing your praises. Yeah, you're a household name. I cannot thank you enough for your time, for having me, just for everything.
Awesome. Well, Anisa, it was great to see you. Great to catch up with this young adult you are now. And I look forward to what the future will bring us.
Thank you.
All right. Well, that's it for another episode of the WC Podcast. We hope to see you at a future one. Until then, stay safe. Well, Anisa, thank you for staying over to do our bonus segment called Against the Wall. Are you ready?
So ready.
All right. The first segment is called Your Favorites. I'm going to name a category, and you're going to give me your favorite thing in that category. Let's start with an easy one. What's your favorite food?
Vegan.
Favorite beverage with dinner?
Water.
Favorite dessert after dinner?
Oh my gosh, vegan cheesecake.
Favorite cocktail?
I love Casamigos. I do love a tequila soda.
Awesome. Favorite scent for relaxation?
Lavender.
Favorite musical group or artist?
Ooh, I'm Lil Wayne.
Favorite book or movie?
My favorite book is Confederacy of Dunces.
Favorite holiday?
Christmas.
Favorite place to vacation?
Florida.
Favorite professional sports team?
The Dolphins.
Favorite Las Vegas professional sports team?
The A's. Awesome. I have a lot of faith.
Good job. Well, you made it through the first segment called Your Favorites. We're going to move on to the second one. It gets a little harder. They're called Tough Choices. So I'm going to give you two choices. Hopefully you can pick one. It's okay if you go both. First one, vacation or staycation?
Vacation.
When you go to a vacation, stay in a hotel or an Airbnb?
Hotel.
When you retire one day, and that's a long way still, but will you retire on a ranch or in the city?
Ranch.
If you can spend a day by yourself, would you do it by the ocean or hiking in the mountains?
Ocean.
If you were a superhero, would you rather have the ability to fly or breathe underwater?
Fly.
The ability to speak with animals or speak any foreign language?
Speak with animals.
This is where it gets hard. Truth or kindness?
Truth.
Justice or grace?
Grace.
Actions or words?
Actions.
Well, you made it through the second segment called Tough Choices. Last one. It's called Finish the Sentence. I'm going to give you about 90%. You're going to finish it for me. You ready?
Mm-hmm.
If Anisa could visit any place in the world, it would be?
Amman, Jordan.
The best part about living today in New York City is?
Being about to get out.
Going to Miami, packing your bag. Very good. Anisa's favorite thing about her job as a licensed master social worker and psychedelic integration therapist at Nushama is?
Helping people rewrite their stories.
And if Anisa had followed a different path, perhaps she might have become?
Stand-up comedian.
Love it. If Anisa could travel back in time, she would travel to?
Gosh. It's a date?
Yeah, anytime in history. You could go back to the medieval ages if you like.
You know what? I would want to hang out with Jesus.
Oh, wow. Now, 3 words that describe Anisa are?
Funny, hardworking, smart.
Couldn't agree more. Doing the WC podcast here with us today was?
A dream come true.
Well, thank you for staying over to do the bonus segment.